We are live, ladies and gentlemen.
Sheikh Saab.
Yes.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum everybody. Over to you, Sheikh Saab. Please start the show.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum to everyone, to my listeners, audience, everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I welcome all of you on our English channel. Here are my young men, Brother Dawar, Brother Bashir, Brother Umar Khan, and on the handling the program is our Brother Amir Haq. Now this channel, the purpose of this English channel is to spread the awareness among the Ahmadiyya youth, the Ahmadiyya young ones who don't understand correctly Urdu language. Basically, the Urdu language of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, in which language he wrote his all beliefs and all his books. Now, here the speakers will be talking that who he was, what kind of prophecies, what kind of claims he made, and Brother Dawar will run this show, and he will be the main person as a host to running this our English channel. So I will hand over to my young fellow Brother Dawar. Please, here is your field. Go ahead. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you very much, AK Sheikh Saab. Jazakumullah khair wa ahsanu jazak fi dunya wal akhirah. Assalamu alaikum viewers. First of all, I would like to thank Sheikh Saab that he included me in one of the young participants. So thank you very much indeed. That's the bonus that I get with working with Sheikh Saab.
Although you are young.
Okay. Well, anyways, so viewers, thank you very much for joining us today. The topic is quite an important one. We have with us here Brother Bashir Shah, Brother Umar Khan, and obviously AK Sheikh Saab. All of these are very well-renowned, learned gentlemen who have left the Ahmadiyya community. They call themselves Ahmadiyya community, so we have to call them that. The Qadiani Jamaat, and they left them and they have come to true Islam. Now, who could be better than them to tell us about the beginning of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad himself and his Jamaat, of course, that how he started that all, and this Palava went whole 9 yards. How did that all happen? So because we have only 1 hour today, we're very restricted by the time. So without wasting any further introduction, you know the speakers really well. You know Brother Umar Khan, you know Brother Bashir Shah, and of course AK Sheikh Saab. So I will start off with our brother Bashir Shah first. Bashir, you yourself, you've done a lot of fantastic work, and I mean, I'm a big fan of your work. I've seen it myself. You've done the Ahmadiyya Fact Check blog, and to be honest with you, when I'm doing my research along with some other sources, I definitely consult your blog and I try to see what's there available, because your sources that you use are very authentic. I have checked them, cross-checked myself, and I haven't found a single one which is out of context or is not true or is not there. So commendable work, well done for that. Now, please, I mean, briefly, I will ask all speakers, including AK Sheikh Saab, to be very brief in telling us about the beginning of Ghulam Ahmad himself and beginning of his Jamaat, and what did you find out in your research. We want to share it with our people, with our fellows who are based in Africa and other countries where they speak English, because Urdu, there's a lot of work being done, as we keep saying, but there's hardly any channel, any voice that's exposing this cult called Jamaat Ahmadiyya and their fake beliefs that they try to pretend to be Muslims. In fact, they're not Muslims. All their beliefs and faiths are against the mainstream Islam. So, Bashir Shah, brother, please tell us, what did you find?
Alhamdulillah. So I'm gonna just start from the beginning. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad came from a non-religious Muslim family that was in the military of the Sikh Empire. Then they transferred into the military of the British Empire. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad's brother, when he got married, his father brought 22 dancing girls. And there's a famous story from Sirat al-Mahdi where Mirza Ghulam Ahmad's father never prayed any salah. There was no masjid in Qadian. He was a non-religious person. His family was non-religious. He was forced to go to Sialkot and work by his father. So that's where he got experience learning about Christians' arguments. And later on, he took those arguments that the Christians made against Islam and used them against Muslims later on, as well as a lot of stuff from Sir Sayyid. So that's his introduction. His father died in 1876. As soon as his father died, he started doing religious work and trying to make some money. I wouldn't call it religious work. He publishes Brahini Ahmadiyya Volume 1 and 2 in 1879. And in that, he claims to be a recipient of divine revelation. In fact, he quotes chapter 18, verse 109. And he claims that Muslims believe that divine revelation has not ended. And this was his very first claim. A few years later, in Brahini Ahmadiyya Volume 3, he quotes Surah Jummah. He doesn't quote Surah Jummah, he quotes the hadith from Salman Farsi, and he says, had the faith ascended to the Pleiades, he would bring it back. And he is him. He claims to have gotten a revelation from Allah that says that he will bring the faith back from the Pleiades, and he's inferring chapter 62, verse 3. This would come.
Brother Bashir, if I could interrupt there, you're referring to this hadith that he in fact quoted the hadith in reference to Surah Jummah. I believe for our viewers, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you're referring to Sahih al-Bukhari, volume 6, the chapter of Surah Jummah. And then in relation to that, you're talking about the hadith in which he put his hand on Salman Farsi's shoulder. Is that the one you're referring to?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's Sahih al-Bukhari for the viewers. Sahih al-Bukhari, volume 6, chapter is called regarding Surah al-Jum'ah, and then in that you will find this hadith. Yes, carry on, brother.
Right. So in this ayah and this hadith, all Allah and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam were explaining was that Islam is universal. It's not just for the non-Arab. Even the non-Arabs, like the Persians and the Africans and the Indonesians and the Americans and the Europeans, it's for everyone. Everyone could get to, if faith had gotten to the Pleiades, all these people will be able to reach it. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad doesn't quote the hadith. He gives the translation and says he will bring it back, which is a mistranslation. So this is where he started. Now, later on, when he claimed prophethood in 1901, he says.
So in Arabic, you're saying, sorry, in Arabic, he basically, purposefully, I should say, he altered the translation. In Arabic, it says that if the faith and the iman reaches that level, then even people, person or persons. In fact, the narrator of the hadith is not even sure himself whether Prophet ﷺ referred to one person or more than one, but he said person or persons will reach it. But
if we will go that high, that everybody will reach that, is not like somebody will come and bring it
and bring it back. So there is no mention of bringing the iman back, which is Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani is saying. So basically, he's distorting the translation of the Holy Quran.
Well, in this case, it wasn't the whole.
I beg your pardon.
It was the hadith. He's inferring that this Quranic ayah means something that it doesn't.
The interpretation of the Quranic verses.
Right. So this is where he started. He started saying that he was getting divine revelation. Then he gets a divine revelation saying he's going to bring the faith back. It's all up to him. He's the guy who's going to cause this revolution, etc., etc., etc. 20 years later, he uses the same verse, the same hadith, and says that he is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Na'uzubillah. He says that he is the same Muhammad. He is the holy prophet. He is the Hatim al-Nabiyyin. And he had also said this in Hutbah al-Hamiyah, which happened in 1900, but it was published the same time Iqbalti Ka Azala was published. So this belief that Mirza Ghulam Ahmad equals Muhammad and vice versa, Nauzubillah, happened in 1900, 1901 with Surah Jummah, with this hadith. And it's outrageous. No one ever in the history of tafsir in the history of being a scholar on Islam ever used this verse of the Quran or this hadith to say that Muhammad was going to come again.
Yeah.
And it's impossible. It's outrageous. This is the biggest thing that Ahmadis run from. And in fact, the Lahori Ahmadis, I respect them. Muhammad Ali did not write this in his commentary of 1970.
Maulana Muhammad Ali Lahori, yeah.
Yeah. He did not write this in his commentary of Surah Jummah, verse 3. He only wrote that he wrote the same thing that Muslims believe, but he also said it has an inference to the Messiah coming. So
Brother Dawar, sorry to say, this is a very important point which Brother Bashir mentioned, that not a single one scholar of Islam, not a single one mufassir of tafsir mentioned the second advent of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him.
None whatsoever. We're all aware of that. Absolutely.
So this
agree.
is the deception. This is the, like, where the Ahmadis, they should think about that one, that this person who's making a claim that he is the second advent of Prophet Muhammad, Mazallah, there is nothing anywhere.
Sheikh Saab is absolutely clear. I mean, look at it. Look at the. I will take a couple of minutes just to elaborate on what Sheikh Saab has said, brother. With apologize to Brother Bashir Shah. When Prophet ﷺ died, we know all the story that surrounds it. That how everybody could not believe what happened. They were in a state of shock. Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq Radhiyallahu Ta'ala Anhu, he came, he kissed the Prophet's forehead, and then he gave a khutbah, and he said that Allah will never converge two deaths on Prophet ﷺ. Wallah, there was only once that you had to die, and he has passed away. I don't need to go into that detail. And then Sayyidina Umar bin Khattab Radhiyallahu Ta'ala Anhu, he sat down and he realized the Prophet ﷺ is passed. Now they use this incident to say that, oh look, they take it somewhere else and relate it to the death of Jesus, peace be upon him. This is the very famous thing that they do. But what lesson we learn from what even the Qadianis believe, the Ahmadiyya Jamaat, Ahmadiyya people believe, is that if they, Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq, Hazrat Umar, Hazrat Usman, Hazrat Ali, Abu Ubaidah bin Jarrah, Abdul Rahman bin Auf, all these Sahabi, Saad bin Abi Waqas, Radhiyallahu Ta'ala Ajmain, they all were there. They all were there when Prophet ﷺ died. None of them said, we're not worried, he's coming back again. Don't worry.
Yeah, exactly.
They knew.
Very well.
They knew. You see, they all knew Quran more than I do, and more than you do, and more than Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Saab did. They all knew. They saw the Quran being revealed right in front of them. And Prophet ﷺ, the Sahib-e-Quran, was explaining it to them what every verse means. If that was the case, none of them would have been so worried and sad and all that. Never mind, he's coming back.
Yes.
Not now, not in our lifetime,
said.
maybe later, not in our lifetime, maybe later, but he's coming back. We shouldn't need to get worried. So, Brother Bashir, this is a very valid point that Sheikh Saab raised. So I thought I would just say a couple of words. Yes,
okay.
I wanted to. When you come to the end of that, I'll go to Umar Khan, Brother Umar Khan then. So
I was just gonna say, Brother Umar, can you give us your expertise on this subject?
Yeah. I'm going to start.
You were saying something similar, Brother Umar. I remember I was talking to you a couple of days earlier, and you mentioned. So please share it with our viewers.
Alhamdulillah. I'm going to start basically for our Ahmadi brothers and sisters at the very start. Number one, for our young Ahmadi brothers and sisters, and even the older ones, whether they want to believe or not, it's important that they themselves identify the inconsistencies within Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, within their khulafa, and within their Jama. As my young brother Bashir Shah just mentioned, his father, Mirza Ghulam's father, Ghulam Murtaza, whether he was a devout Muslim or not, that's not of the debate here, but he was of Sunni background, Sunni Muslim background. He died approximately, I think, 1876, when Mirza Ghulam Ahmad was approximately 34, 35 years old. But what's interesting is, as Mirza Ghulam Ahmad grew up throughout his life, from his birth on out to, for example, 1857, the War of Mutiny. Ghulam Murtaza Mirza Ghulam Ahmad's father, donated 50 horsemen and horses to the English government to fight the mutiny against the Muslims and the Hindus. And to me, that is very disrespectful. How would an Ahmadi feel if the Pakistani government mounted up against them and then their ally, England, came against the Ahmadis? They would never respect that at all. So the mutiny within your Jamaat starts at the very, very beginning. I'll also quote, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, in supposedly before claiming prophethood, was receiving revelations. For example, if you visit Tazkira, the famous Tazkira, and I'm referring to the Urdu volume, page 5, you'll find a very unique ilham, supposedly concocted ilham of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, where he says that he received notification from Allah that he was going to live to the age of 80. Now, note that this is in 1865, well before, 43 years before he died, never making it to 80. So a failed prophecy there. It's important that Ahmadis create a little checklist of all this guy's prophecies and how they failed. And he made made the bold claim. He says, you prove one of my prophecies as failed, and I will be considered a liar, a grand liar, and a fabricator. That's it. One. We will demonstrate throughout our English programs here. We're going to demonstrate hundreds, hopefully, if inshallah we get the time.
Inshallah.
If not thousands, yeah.
And then, as you study the life of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad through his own literature and through the literature of his respected khulafa, you see how in Urdu we say inhiraf. You see how he deviates. And the deviation came basically after Mirza Ghulam Ahmad read the Tafsir al-Quran of Sir Sayyid Ahmad Khan.
Absolutely.
It's a documented fact in Siratul Mahdi, page 145. Reference, I think, the Ahmadi hadith number, if I can respectfully state it in that manner, is 150. It's page 145, and it clearly says, Bashiruddin Ahmad is reciting or relating the subject of the fact that his father read it. He read the tafsir, but Mirza Ghulam Ahmad disapproved of the tafsir because of Sir Sayyid's non-Islamic, point noted here, non-Islamic beliefs about the angels, about Hazrat Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, about Hazrat Maryam, about respected other prophets. So, he disagrees.
He was calling Sir Sayyid as nature.
Yes,
nature.
But then he adopts that same philosophy and takes, oh, wait a minute, Jesus didn't die on the cross, or he died on the cross, or was taken down alive from the cross. He took that theory and ended up running with it. To another point that Brother Bashir Shah has just mentioned about Surah 62, verse 3, there is none. There's absolutely no comparison there whatsoever. I'm looking for a reference that here it is.
Yeah. There is none. Basically, you're absolutely right, Brother Omar. I mean, I think probably somebody handed him over a copy of the Barnabas Gospel as well, because this story is mentioned there as well. So he probably had that source too. I mean, if we have all read the Gospel of Barnabas, it's not a canonic gospel, obviously everybody knows, but it's in circulation. There were around 150 Gospels, out of which the 4 were considered to be canonic. That's another story. But I would, before I go to AK Sheikh Saab, and Brother Umar Khan can probably look at the reference if he, then we can get it back from him. Before I go to Sheikh Saab, Ahmad Karim Saab, I would like to clarify two things. Brother Omar Khan has used two terms in his little elaboration here. One is a mutiny and the other one is tazkira. So I'll tell our respected viewers, you're probably aware of tazkira. The tazkira is the collection of the ilhams and wahis as claimed by Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian. He claimed that he had this ilham, and then he claimed that he had this wahi. There is a slight difference between ilham and wahi. They both are supposed to be from God Almighty, from Allah. So his followers actually collected them in a book and called it a tazkira. And it is not a book which is written by Ghulam Ahmad. In fact, it's a compilation of his claimed alham and wahi. So this is one term. Many people are aware, but what is mutiny? Many people probably will not be aware of that, especially the younger generation. In subcontinent, when the British Raj, the British Empire entered and they invaded, there was East India Company that was fighting with different Maharajas and Rajas and small little sultanates and kings and all that, and were defeating them and were occupying land. At one stage, what happened that they overcome almost all strong kings and Maharajas and all that in India, and there was a joint effort against them to overthrow their rule of East India Company, by the way. And in 1857, there was a big war in India. The defending nationalists were defeated, and the British company called East India Company, which had a full support from the throne, in fact, of Great Britain, they overtook. At that time, the actual rulership of subcontinent India was transferred from East India Company to the British Raj officially. So it came under the crown of Queen Victoria, for whom Mirza Ghulam Ahmad was full of praises, in fact. So this is called mutiny. Mutiny in English, in simple English, means a rebel. And people from subcontinent call it the War of Independence. We don't call it mutiny. Mutiny is a term that they use. And unfortunately, I think, as far as I know, Brother Umar can correct me if I'm wrong, A.K. Sheikh Saab, that mutiny is the ghadar, is the word in Urdu, and it is.
Yes.
And this is the one which is used by Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. He referred to this war of independence by the brave soldiers of Islam and Hinduism and Sikhism. He called them ghadar, that it was a bagawat, it was a mutiny.
Like all those who were supporting British, they called Ghadar. Like all those the others who want their country should be free from the British Empire, they were saying like this is a war of freedom.
Struggle for freedom.
Yes,
Yeah, struggle for freedom.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, thanks for the clarification on that, Brother David. Yes, indeed, it was the War of Independence for the Muslims and the Hindus at the same time. You know, both of the facts of those individuals were fighting for the same cause. Now, we also, Brother Bashir Shah mentions Mirza Ghulam Ahmad's father and brother. You know, it's kind of shameful of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad to note in the book that Brother David Aziz just described, the book Tazkira, of all the revelations, the so-called revelations received by Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. In Tazkira, in 1898, there's a reference to Mirza Ghulam Ahmad stating that it goes along the lines of he was a shy person, he didn't like interacting with individuals, they lived in a large house, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of that mentioning in Tazkira, it says that God cleared the way, meaning he cleared the way by putting to death Mirza Ghulam Ahmad's father and Mirza Ghulam Ahmad's brother, Ghulam Qadir, early on. So they couldn't interfere with his prophethood. And when I read that, I mean, that to me is so mind-boggling. Number one, his father had died 1876, well before Mirza Ghulam Ahmad ever started, you know, chanting, you know, to be a Mujaddid or to be a Mahdi or to be the Masih Messiah or the Messiah himself or to be a prophet. You know, that to me was very shameful. He uses his father and brother throughout his literature in good and bad ways when it's, you know, to his objective. I did find the reference, Brother Dawar. It is Malfuzat Volume 3, page 270. And I believe this is the old version, the 10-volume version. Now, for our listeners, and I think our beloved, respected A.K. Sheikh Saab has clarified this. There was a 10-volume version, and now there's a 5-volume version. So do not confuse the volumes, volume 3 with the new volume 3, because you won't find the reference that I'm referring to.
It's a deception, Brother Umar. It's a deception because they have changed the titles of every subject, and they change the pages. So when you are talking volume 2, page this, so obviously the young generation will right away jump into the current one, which is volume have total 5 volumes.
Sheikh
And
Saab,
they will say, oh, Brother Umar was giving us a wrong and false. He was lying on
It's
that.
not there.
Sheikh Saab, just on another note, just to your point, back in 2005, when I was studying really hard to see whether I wanted to stay in this Jamaat or whether it was factual or not, there was a discussion between myself and a Lahori Ahmadi, and he had provided me a reference of, I believe the book was Nurul Haq, of the famous 1,000 lanat, the curses of Allah 1,000 times. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, this guy was showing me pages, about 5 in total, I believe, that had the word lanat, one all the way through 1,000, handwritten.
Literally from 1 to 1,000, yes.
Now, this was the Lahori version of that specific book. So the page numbers he gave me versus the Ruhani Khazain that I now have were different. So I immediately went back and I said, you're a liar. I can't find the references. But when you go through
the old trick,
just a quick recommendation to all of our viewers, please give it time. Do the thorough research that's necessary. Go page by page. If you can't read Urdu, for God's sake, there's Google Translate. You can type in the alpha characters and Google will translate certain things for you. It probably not the best translation, but it will get you a head start. Now, going back to what I had mentioned about to Brother Dawar Aziz and the group, in Malfuzat Volume 3, page 270, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad writes, and I've translated this into English. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad says, the various accomplishments which were bestowed upon all other prophets were concentrated in a greater degree in the Holy Prophet. All of those accomplishments have been conferred on me through the Holy Prophet's reincarnation in me. Astaghfirullah, na'uzubillah.
We remember this.
Okay? That is why I bear the names Adam, Abraham, Moses, Noah, David, Joseph, Solomon, John, Jesus, etc. All the previous prophets were incarnations of special attributes of the Holy Prophet. But he says, I am the reincarnation of all the attributes of the Holy Prophet. Astaghfirullah, na'uzubillah. And just what Brother Bashir Shah was referring to in Surah 62, verse 3, how Ahmadis tried to manipulate that verse and mistranslate it is beyond me. Please, pull your head out of the sand, study it correct. Thank you very much.
Thank you, brother Umar Khan. We'll get back to you on this one as well. Now, I would like to ask A.K. Sheikh Saab, please kindly, what Bashir Shah, our brother Bashir Shah, has mentioned about the mutilation, I would say, astaghfirullah, of the hadith, and what does it mean, and how he tried to interpret it and translate it that could favor him and bring him up forward. I mean, what is your understanding? He was doing it consistently throughout his life. You know that.
Yes.
And briefly touch that. And also, I would like you to, if you may, or I will invite someone else, but I mean, I would like you to ponder upon the fact that how he was deceitful, even in very simple, straightforward matters, that when he promised that he will write the Brahini Ahmadiyya and he will write 5 volumes, ended up writing 4, and then probably 20 years later or so, Whatever happened, that story I want you to touch briefly. What do you think that, why was he doing this? What he did with the hadiths of Surah Jum'ah?
Thank you so much. The first of all, when he read some books from the Muslim scholars like Fatuhat-e Makkiyya and some
By
other,
Sheikh Ibn Arabi.
yeah,
Muhyiddin
Muhyiddin Arabi,
Arabi.
Ibn Taymiyyah. So from there, he got this concept that, look, even it is mentioned exactly right now, I don't have that, you abruptly asked me, the exchange between Mirza Ghulam Ahmad and Nuruddin, the writer, the letters, they were talking about one hadith, and he said that if something happens wrong, he said, well, we can interpret this way. Don't worry about that one. Meaning is that one, they were discussing these kind of things, that if something will go wrong, then what we will do. He said, it's easy job. We can interpret the other way. We can tawil. They use the word tawil. We can do the tawil. Same thing over here. Same thing over here, because he was not sure about the personal background. Sometimes he calls himself that he belongs to a Mughal family. Sometimes he mentioned that my grandmothers were from the Sadat, from Sayyids. He mentioned so many times, it's just like that one, the grave of Prophet Isa ibn Maryam, that is in Jerusalem, in Kashmir, in Damascus. He said that different places. Same way, he's talking about his background, that he is from this, from that, from Hazrat Fatima's family. He is from Rasul Akrim's family. He is a family of Salman Farsi. That's why he took that one, that I also belong to a Persian. He said that there is the word that a person or more will bring it back, as Brother Bashir mentioning. Bring it back. There is no such thing. Meaning is that one, that all over the world, whoever, no matter black, brown, or from the Asian, from the British, or anywhere, from African, they will reach to that deen, that the Islam, they will reach there. When you
they
reach,
will be so pious. They will be so pious. They will be so
of
full of
course,
faith that
exactly, they will reach there.
Not bring it back. Not bring it back.
No, think about that one, how the thing will go somewhere. This is not a materialistic thing. Meaning is that one, if you cannot understand, the Allah will make and will give you certain ways to understand, so you will get the message. That is the point.
Sheikh Sahab, absolutely true. I mean, I'll go back to Brother Bashir Shah, but I'll mention you one thing before this. You just reminded me of something. You said that the Iman, your faith, is not something which is materialistic thing. It's not a material. It's not a tangible thing that you can bring it back down. This reminds me of a writing, and I was trying to remember the back of my mind who was this writer, but he was a follower of Mirza Sahib. And he wrote something which I'm sure that you're very good scholars, all of you, and you would know this. But for my viewers, I'm going to share this. And he said that there was a servant of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad who was, doing him favors, like sleeping next to him on the floor while Mirza Sahib was sleeping on his charpai, on his bed. And he was serving him. Do you remember this one?
Oh,
now,
I made videos about that one. This is
so he said, now this is interesting, viewers. You're going to love this.
It's a Mauli Abdul Karim Sialkoti. It was Mauli Abdul.
If the wahi comes to someone, a person X, let's say a prophet, the wahi comes to him. Wahi used to come to our prophet, beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was sitting in the crowd of dozens upon dozens, scores of people he was sitting in. He would hear the wahi or have alqa on his heart, or the angel would speak to him, whisper to him. Nobody else would ever hear that, a word from it, a jot or tittle. Now, this type of wahi Ghulam Ahmad was receiving. I mean, this is written in the books, and none of the Qadianis ever denied it. He said he was sleeping right next to him on the floor, and the wahi came to Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, and he also had a drop of the wahi on him. It's like if the wahi is
Oh,
is a physical thing, it's like it's a drop
that's.
that fell on him
I
instead
believe
of
you
like
are
a shower.
mentioning Abdullah Sonori. I believe you are mentioning Abdullah
I
Yes.
think
Sonori.
so. I think so. He was
No,
right next
I
to
thought
him.
the other one he was giving. He was a guard of that one while he was
No, no,
sleeping.
no,
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 no.
not that.
Yeah,
When
yes,
he threw like the ink
yes,
like that. No, not that one.
yes.
So
He
he
Well, I was
was
he
gonna
said
say
Abdullah Sonori.
there are so many that he slept with. I mean, how can
so
you
he
only?
said he was sleeping next to
Yeah,
him, but he was showering upon Ghulam Ahmed, and one drop also fell on the servant,
yeah.
and that drop was, I will say in Urdu, and then I'm going to repeat this in English, the translation. The wahi, that the drop that fell on that servant of Ghulam Ahmed was Ut Surah Namaz Pad. Means the in English we will translate it as
That's
that get up, O pig, and pray to Allah. I mean, if you can imagine that if one drop of the wahi is get a pig and pray to Allah, then what would be the whole shower of the wahi be like?
that.
I mean,
I'm sorry. Then again, it's another one. What I was
I
mentioning to
think
you. Yeah, that
have you
was the
have you
one when he presented. He was sleeping. The one his companion Abdullah Snori was beside his bed, and the Mirza Ghulam Ahmad is in the dream presenting a letter to Allah and asking him to sign. Then Allah
yes,
had
and
with the red, he just like shook that the pen and the drops came. I thought you were mentioning going to that one, but
no,
this is a Ut Surah Namaz, but that's another one. That's another one.
that's another one. Get up, a
Yeah,
pig, and pray. This is one drop from the wahi, so you can
yes,
imagine what the wahi
yeah.
would be like.
so.
Anyway, so
I guess, brother Davar, that's what we would refer to as hogwash.
Hogwash.
Hogwash. Okay, okay, fine. Brother Bashir, you've been listening patiently. Just tell us about something. The famous. Um, people call it mathematics, and I call it mess-a-mathics. The famous five, no difference between 5 and 50 except that there is a dot. And tell us the background. I was going to ask Sheikh Saab, but then we talked about a few things else.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
asking for the Bashir Shah because Bashir Shah has been quiet for a while, listening very
No.
patiently.
I will give the
Bashir,
time to Bashir Shah, and the other thing because we have to be very
we have about 20
time for.
minutes left.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
20 minutes.
no, we have 8 minutes because of or 45 minutes for this program, and I
All
will give
right.
the time to Brother Bashir Shah. Please go ahead, Bashir Shah.
So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Bashir, please tell us this
Yeah,
famous calculation by Ghulam Ahmad, please.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, first,
And a little background. And a little background.
right, and then I'm gonna go back because I wasn't done with the whole prophethood.
Yeah, sure.
Very briefly, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad never said he would write 50 books. He said he would write 300 arguments. Brahini Ahmadiyya, Volume 5, was published after Mirza Ghulam Ahmad died. 4 or 5 months after he died, someone else wrote the preface. Whoever wrote that preface, they made up that argument. It wasn't new. For Arba'in in 1900, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad promised 40. He only gave 4, and they gave the same argument. They said 40 is the same as 4. Okay, they did
Zero.
it again with the Brahim. Remember, Brahini Ahmadiyya, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad promised 300 arguments, and he only gave
Yeah.
1. What was that one argument? That he was a prophet. That's why
Yes.
he was called a kafir immediately after the 4th volume of Brahini Ahmadiyya was published by the Ahli Hadith. He was called a kafir early on. So going back to his prophethood claim, going back to Ik Galti Ka Azala, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad claimed any Muslim can be a prophet. He says
Yeah.
it's in Surah Fatiha, chapter 1, verse 6. Bestow thy blessings upon us. He claims that Muslims are praying every day to become like the prophets. And a few years later, he connected chapter 4, verse 69 with Surah Fatiha, and he was claiming that anyone could be a prophet. But then he says, in the whole ummah, only I was given the title of prophet.
Yes. Very true. Okay, thank you.
One thing real
Thanks so
quick,
much.
brother
Yeah, now
Davar,
you
if I
could.
can. If I can.
Yes, sure. Very briefly, because we have
just 1
little
minute.
time.
When he
sure.
started out and he embarked on writing Brahini Ahmadiyya 1, 2, 3, and 4, and he made those announcements. Number one of the first announcements was an appeal for financial assistance.
Yeah.
Number two, now make note of this. Every Ahmadi needs to make note of this. Number two, a supposed recipient of revelation from Allah ask all of the respective Muslim ulama of the time for their assistance. Please provide me material so I can create these arguments and present them in front of the Hindus and Christians and everyone. So what claimant of prophethood or what prophet has ever done that? This is absolutely unheard of. So, you know,
Absolutely.
the 50 becoming 5, the 300 becoming 1, the 200 million so-called Ahmadis in the world becoming 200,000, you know, that's where this math comes from.
Okay.
I agree. I second that. Okay.
With
So
these
now,
words, with these words, I'll finish my on this topic. That in Brahim, when he was writing, he mentioned that the price of 10,000 rupees.
yes.
The same time, the person is claiming that I put my life, I put my everything in the way of Allah. Now he is giving a 10,000, but look at this. This guy is asking money to write the book to help him out. Whereas if he doesn't have money and asking that one, I can understand. If he have $10,000, was he lying for that one? If he has the property which he want to spend in the way of Allah, why he did not spend the money from his own pocket? Think about
exactly.
that. Yeah, brother Dawar, go ahead. That's
Yes,
what.
thank you, Sheikh. It's a very valid point, and I invite our listeners, especially the people from Jamaat Ahmadiyya community, to ponder upon this. What Sheikh Sahib has said, that he was asking for donation to be able to write Brahim Ahmadiyya because he claimed that he has got no money. And on the other hand, he put a price on something, a different incident, and he said that if this thing can be proven wrong, I will offer 10,000 rupees to those people. 10,000 rupees in that time and age.
Is a 1 crore, more than that even.
You cannot even begin to imagine that what it could be. You could have probably bought a mansion with that money in that time. But anyway, so going back to Brother Bashir Shah, we have got about 2.5 minutes, and you would like to complete that what you were saying, and then we will go to a very brief question and answer session. So here you go.
Yeah, this was what drew me away from Ahmadiyya and Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. It was his embellishments about his prophethood. He knew he was a prophet. He knew he was the Messiah, or he was going to claim to be the Messiah. In his brain, he already knew all these things, and he denied them. He denied. From 1879 to 1891, he denied being the Messiah, even though all of his revelations were pointing towards that. Then, as he claimed to be the Messiah, he denied prophethood. He denied prophethood 100 times. In Delhi, he was forced to publish an announcement where he said any claimant to prophethood is a kafir and a liar. He even prayed.
Absolutely. Yes.
He was cornered in Delhi, so he prayed behind the Muslim imam at the mosque in Delhi just to be able to get out of there. So, let me quote another verse of the Quran. In 1891, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad quoted chapter 4, verse 64, wherein Allah says, prophets follow Allah. They don't follow anyone else, right? And Mirza Ghulam Ahmad argued that he was an ummati and not a nabi, because the ummati could never be a nabi. You see where I'm going with this? But after 1901, after he claimed prophethood, he changed his position on this verse and many others, and he said, no, an ummati can be a nabi. Right? So there's a lot of Quranic verses. And then after the split of 1914, the Khalifa, Mirza Bashir Din Mahmud Ahmad, wrote Qawl al-Fasl and Haqiqat al-Nubuwwat. In that, he quoted chapter 7, verse 35, which says, O children of Adam, if prophets come among you, accept. So, and then he quoted chapter 2, verse 4. And this is the worst one. Like I said, brother, it gets worse and worse and worse. Chapter 2, verse 4 says that Muslims believe in the last day, the akhirah, right? He changed that and translated it as the revelation to come. So this was how they closed the loop on Mirza Ghulam Ahmad's prophethood. They quoted all these verses, and the Lahori Ahmadis, I respect them. They knew Mirza Ghulam Ahmad and his family were bad, and they tried to fix it, and they were kicked out, and they didn't get a governmental support the way the Mirza family did. Their support with the government and colonialism, it sort of went away because they attached themselves to the greater Islamic community, whereas the Qadiani side of the house did not.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Brother Bashir and AK Sheikh Saab and Brother Umar. We are now entering in the time. The link has been given in the description that if you want to join and if you want to ask questions related to the topics only, please, that we've discussed today. Here's the link on your screen. You click it, you will enter, type in your question very quickly, and one of our learned speakers would like to answer that. In the meantime, I would like to share a couple of things which I've learned is that any of these things that Brother Bashir Shah has presented, Brother Umar, Brother AK Sheikh have presented, and there are lots more, believe me. We've come to know that any logic that you give to the people of the Jamaat Ahmadiyya, they have a counter logic. They already prepared it. It's like Ahmadiyya pocketbook kind of a job that they have. Totally meaningless, brainless, has got no logic, no rationals, no such evidence. But what they have, what Sheikh Saab referred to, is called tawil. And they use this tawil to even when it's so clear as 2 + 2 always makes 4, it doesn't make 5, it doesn't make 3, it doesn't make even 3.5 or 4.5. It makes 2 + 2 always makes 4. If you present that to a person from Ahmadiyya Jamaat, they would, with the tawil, they will try to prove it that it's not true. I mean, this is what we always face, and that's why it's so difficult to explain these things to you. But we are trying to do this in the hope that rational will prevail, common sense will prevail, and you will be able to see the things that don't need any tawil, why people are doing tawil for them. Because other than that, this religion, this cult, this faith, whatever you want to call it, its foundations solely lie in tawil, and they don't really have a leg to stand upon. So with that, if we, I don't know, brother, I think brother Amir is controlling at the back. So if we have any questions, brother Amir, please, by all means, fire off the first one.
Okay, there is a caller. Yeah.
Yes, we have Mr. Naveed with us. Mr. Naveed, where from and what's your question, sir?
Yeah, I'm from Pakistan, and I would like to ask a question from Mr. AK Sheikh.
Sure.
That in your thinking, what is the Quranic version of prophethood? Is there any loophole in that the prophet should come or not? What is the Quranic version says? Thank you.
Thank you. The very first one, that the deen, Surah Maida, that Allah have completed the deen, and the prophets, they used to bring the deen. And the other one regarding Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he's a Khataman Nabiyyin. And now again, it's a very common debate, and they have given that Khatim, Zayd, Zabar, the Khatim seal, or the quality, or the last one. They used and they interpret. But the thing is, you have to understand that when Allah started his mission, that he created this, we human beings, Allah have guided them. The animals, the other species, been given the guidance in their nature. They were programmed. But we human left that we are having the brain to think, to say something, to look and vision. For that one, we have to make our own decision. We are not bound. We would be then the same animals as they were. They have to do that one. But we've been giving the free will.
Thank you very much. You've actually elaborated. Your number was on screen. I
Thank
would
you.
request the gentleman to contact Sheikh Saab after the show because we really have very limited time, unfortunately. There is Sheikh Saab's WhatsApp number. You can contact him. He can explain to you. In briefly, I would say one thing, and that should summarize it, I hope, really well, is that the Jamaat Ahmadiyya people say to us that Nabuwa is a blessing and how Allah can discontinue a blessing. It looks like a very logical, very valid logical point. But my counter narrative is, and this is what I think, is that completion of Nabuwa is in fact a namat, an inam of Allah. It's a blessing of Allah. Because if Nabuwa was never to be completed, the mankind would always be in search of a final version. That where are we going to end, when the Sharia is going to be complete, it keeps changing, and we keep wondering what's coming next. So completion of Nabuwa, completion of Sharia is basically a blessing of Allah. So we will go to our next caller. If we have another caller, please put them on. We want to get as many, and I would request at the same time to our participants, our learned scholars, just to be as brief as possible, please, with your questions, with your answers. So do we have a caller, brother Amir?
I believe there is no caller right now.
There's
But
no, okay. So
yeah,
so taking from this point, I would suggest that completion of prophethood is in fact a blessing of Allah. We are not
Allah
wondering
mentioned this.
anymore.
Allah is saying in
We are
Quran that
not
this is a blessing.
wondering anymore what's coming next.
Correct.
What's going to happen next? What's going to change? What is going to be discontinued? What is going to be added? So the completion of prophethood and a seal on the prophethood that no new prophet will come. I think that completes it, and that's the name, and that's why Allah says, "Al-yawma akmaltu lakum ala dinikum." Allah has completed the religion on that day, has completed His favor upon us, and has chosen Islam as a religion. Full stop, period. The blessing is being completed. We are not waiting for any more instructions. This is a big nama from Allah, as far as I'm concerned.
Brother Dawar, we have to know act on that, the teaching of Allah, what Allah have given us in shape of Quran. Now we have to spend, and we have to show our act, and we are accountable for that one. It's not like that one. Oh, I didn't receive all the guidance. I didn't receive all the information.
Exactly.
No. You have been given your manual. You have been given your manual. Now you have to live your life, and you are giving the freedom whether you accept it or reject it, and you face the consequences or you face the reward for that one.
Absolutely. I fully agree with you, and there is no such logic as the continuation of Nabuwa is actually a blessing, and blessing. Why would Allah discontinue blessing? I mean, the message is clear.
And exactly, Brother Dawar, what is going on? For example, hypothetically, if we will accept for a second, okay, Nabuwa still is continue. Now, the question is, what kind of game this Ahmadiyya cult is playing? Did they stay on a one thing? No. They have changed. Yeah. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad have changed his version so many times. Sometimes he says the people are stupid, they don't understand. I'm not saying that I'm a likewise Isa, Masih. I am Masih. I am the promised one. They don't understand. And sometimes say, no, I'm not. So, I mean, these kind of dance they are doing, having this kind of a claim, Allah has completed His deen, which was started by the first man, and at the end on our prophet, beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now
that's a separate debate. We can take it up on another day. Brother Bashir Shah or Brother Omar Khan, any one of you would like that? Because I don't think we have a caller right now.
If we don't have a caller, then I would just like to, agree with both of you.
If we have a caller online who wants to ask a question, I would with
your
permission.
That's fine. I think Brother Naveed, who came and joined and asked the question about the Quranic version of prophethood, the answer that both A.K. Sheikh Saab and Brother Dawar Aziz given is 100% factual. Dawar Aziz mentioned it's a blessing, and it absolutely is, because once someone enters the ring and says, hey, I'm a prophet, you now have caused a rift, you now have caused a line of division. And that was something that the Muslim Ummah was guaranteed not to happen to them. Because our beloved Holy Prophet ﷺ, he informed us of that. There is none. Now, there is a majority of Shia and Sunni Muslims that believe in the return of Hazrat Isa. When, how, why, that's a complete different discussion for Ahmadis. Please don't ask the dumb questions. What is he doing up in heaven? What is he eating? Where is, God forbid, he going to the bathroom? Those are so ignorant questions that they're beyond belief. A discussion about Mirza Ghulam Ahmad's prophethood has nothing to do with our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, has nothing to do with Hazrat Isa alayhi salatu wasalam or any respective prophet or mothers of the Prophet, i.e. Hazrat Maryam alayhi salatu wasalam. Nothing to do with Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. Keep them out of the picture, keep it respectful. Discuss Mirza Ghulam Ahmad's claims just like we are doing here live for you all. Thank you.
Okay. There is a one caller, Brother Dawood. There is a one caller, I believe.
Yes, sure. Please go ahead. Introduce yourself, sir. What's your name? Where you from? I see no caller. Oh, there is one now. Yes, please. What's your name? Where you from, sir?
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
My name is Furqan, and I'm calling from Pakistan. I do have like 3 questions, and I want to ask you, Mr. AK Sheikh. The very first question is regarding the donation.
Few would be difficult. Few would be difficult. We got like 4 minutes.
I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
We've got 4 minutes. So few questions would be a bit problem.
Go ahead. Ask
Thanks,
your question. Yeah, no problem.
Okay, sir. Thank you. So my first question is regarding the donation. Just wanted to ask that whether the Qadiani cult used to help out the people apart from the Qadiani people, that whatever they used to take chanda from the Qadiani people. So whether they used to spend the money on the people which are outside the Qadianism. And my second question is, what exactly is the process to distribute the money for being requested by the needy people, obviously in the Qadianism, whether the process reflects the transparency or does it requires the blessing from the loved ones?
Well,
I'm saying it like.
Interrupt here for a second. This is
and my last question. My last question. So obviously the people, the other callers might have some time as well. So my last question is that who's going to be in the next lineup? I mean, who's going to be the next Khalifa after Mirza Masroor?
Okay,
I
will answer that on my Facebook page, but let Brother Dawood to respond.
No, let me give you the answer to the last question. It will be somebody from the Mirza Saab's family.
Well,
and
very right.
I would like to add,
I can even give you a name here, but I don't want to.
Please.
Well, once Mirza Masroor perishes, the rider of Lakhte Jigar, his horse, whoever's riding that horse is going to be the Khalifa.
Okay.
Sorry for the joke there.
Okay,
but getting back to the donation.
First of all,
very briefly.
I wish Masroor should stay longer. I don't want him to go and someone else come. That is up to Allah whenever he passes away. The other thing, his family have inside a big fight. Who will be the next successor? Number. The other, what you ask, the money they get as a chanda, unfortunately, they do not spend on their own members when they are needed. Believe me, any Ahmadi who is coming out of Pakistan and they're coming to the Western countries as a refugee, as an asylum seeker, they are a burden on the system of other countries. They abuse the system. They are dependent on them. No. The Ahmadiyya cult is forcing to the governments that they should accept them and they should give them all kind of a help. Whereas, whatever the help they get from the system, from the governments, they take their chanda from that amount.
That's absolutely true, Sheikh.
Just imagine.
Thank you very much.
The money they are getting for their children to feed, they take 6.25% from that money. how they are
Okay.
doing, how
Okay,
they are.
we have almost come to
Oh,
the end of the transmission. Thank you, Sheikh Saf, for your reply, Brother Umar Khan, and our brother Bashir Shah. I would recommend to you that if you are well versed with the English language, I certainly would recommend that look up for his blog, Bashir Shah's blog, the Ahmadiyya Fact Check blog. I mean, when I'm doing my research, when I'm preparing my paper or article or something, or even a deliberation like this, I do check his blog, and believe me, there is so much information, and nothing is without cross-reference. That's the beauty of his blog. Mashallah has done a great job. Sheikh Saab's website was hacked. He unfortunately, I mean, he did a grand job, and Brother Umar is always available. We are here every Saturday, Pakistan time, from 10 p.m. onwards for 1 hour at least. We try to finish it within 1 hour, because longer than that, it could be a problem for technical reasons, and also many people cannot spare that much time. We appreciate your presence here. As much as you give this time, believe me, it will not go to a waste. This is for a good cause. None of us is a paid speaker. We don't take any money for this. We do it purely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and in the hope that some people would take some advice from it, do their own fact checks, they do their own research, they do their own calculations, and they work out that if they are in the Ahmadiyya Jamaat, then they probably are not in the right Jamaat. Most certainly they're not in the right Jamaat, but we are nobody to force something upon anyone. It's entirely between you, Allah, and your Iman. You have to decide.
okay.
Do your own research, do your own study, like Brother Umar Khan did, like Brother Bashir Shah did, like AK Sheikh Saab did. I was born in a Sunni family. I was a born Muslim, but these three gentlemen went through the difficult path, though, and they did their research. They found out the facts and the flaws in Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani's writings, his claims. We all know, we all believe that it was a fake claim, but there are evidence to support that belief, not just a blind belief. We invite you to study those books written by Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani. You don't have to read any books written by people from Khatma Nabuwa or from the opposition
Yes.
party or the opposition side. The own person who claims to be the prophet, and you believed him to be a prophet, we invite you to read his own books, unbiased. Take off your biased lenses, your
Okay.
biased
Okay.
glasses, and just read
Thank you.
unbiased. This is what these three gentlemen have done. With this,
Okay.
I say thank you very much to AK Sheikh Saab, to Brother Umar Khan, to Brother
Thank
Bashir
you.
Shah, and I'm myself, Dawar Aziz, your host for today. Every Saturday, without fail, inshallah, we
Inshallah.
will be here exposing this cult and
Thank
telling you exactly that why they are not Muslims, and do not get your iman, your faith,
Thank you. Thank you,
lost
Brother
to
Dawar.
them in the
Thank
name
you.
of Islam.
Thank you so
Jazakumullah
much,
khair wa
Brother
ahsan
Dawar.
jazakum
Jazakum
fil akhirah. Thank
Allah.
you.